In 2015, a young man named Lucas, living in a secluded cabin, was taking care of his ailing elderly grandfather. One afternoon, he was jolted awake from a nap by a loud, frantic scream. Rushing to his grandfather's room, he found him cowering under the blankets like a frightened child. Lucas, whose full name remains anonymous, shook his grandfather gently to get his attention. When his grandfather finally calmed down, he claimed he saw a fiery figure standing by the door, one he could only describe as a demon. The grandfather insisted he had never hallucinated before and was adamant about what he saw being real. A 68-year-old retired nurse came to the hospital claiming she had visions of bizarre faces floating above her. She insisted she wasn't losing her mind, and tests ruled out infection and medication interactions as causes. The woman and her family were so concerned, they considered calling a priest for an exorcism before seeking medical help. She drew what she saw: faces with large teeth, eyes and ears, with an elongated shape like a football. Doctors diagnosed her with Charles Bonnet syndrome, a condition where patients experience vivid visual hallucinations without any accompanying sounds. In 1985, a man named Jonathan Reyes had recently lost his father to illness. He locked himself in his room, deeply grieving. One night, he was startled by the sound of the wooden floor creaking. Looking up, he saw his father standing in the doorway staring at him. His screams were so loud that neighbors called the police, who later learned the story from him. Doctors found no medical reason for hallucinations. As far as anyone knows, he never saw his father again. When I was very young, I lived alone with my single mother. She always checked on me every night when she got up to use the bathroom. One night I woke up thinking I heard something in my closet. I saw my mom at the foot of my bed waving playfully. She told me to go back to sleep, then went into my closet, leaving the door ajar and peeking through the crack. I fell asleep moments later. The next morning I asked her why she hid in the closet. She looked puzzled and told me she hadn't been in my room all night. Initially, she thought someone had broken in, but later concluded it was a dream or hallucination. Since then, I've had two other hallucinations, neither as vivid or creepy. As a trucker, I often did late-night runs and relied on coffee to stay awake. One night, without coffee, I struggled to stay awake and almost dozed off behind the wheel. Suddenly, I saw a black figure in the road. I swerved to avoid it and stopped to gather my thoughts. Looking in the rearview mirror, I saw the figure still standing there. Although not usually confrontational, I felt compelled to investigate. When I got out, no one was there. I drove a few miles, pulled over, and fell asleep, believing my mind had played tricks on me. At 13, I never had sleep problems and was a heavy sleeper. One Saturday morning I woke up unable to move, with only my eyes under control. In the corner of the room I saw an 8-foot-tall man with a gaping, bloody mouth holding a large knife. My worst fear was realized as he hovered towards me. Paralyzed, I closed my eyes, expecting the worst. When nothing happened, I opened my eyes and he was gone. I ran to tell my parents, who explained it was sleep paralysis. The fear was genuine, and I still remember his face vividly. Being a single mother working 2 jobs, I often hired sitters for my 3-year-old son. Exhausted from a long drive home one night, I almost fell asleep behind the wheel. Suddenly I heard giggling from the back seat and saw my son in the mirror. I slammed the brakes, but the back seat was empty. Moments later, I got a call from the sitter saying my son had fallen and broken his ankle. Fully awake, I sped home, believing mothers have a sixth sense about their children. One late night, home alone in a rural area with neighbors nearby, I heard a scream from the woods. Grabbing a flashlight, I ventured out and saw a tall figure with a trunk-like appendage hanging from its face. It moved towards me, and I backed into the house, locking the door. When I looked again, it was gone. I hoped it was just my imagination, knowing you can see strange things when tired, though I wasn't tired that night. On vacation at a rural Pennsylvania resort, there weren't many young people around. One day, I saw a girl in a second-floor window. Later, she appeared near the playground staring at me. Approaching her, I realized her face was unsettling. She ran into the woods, and I stopped, spooked. Driving home, I saw her again by the highway, staring at me through tinted windows. My parents didn't see her, and I accepted it was all in my head. Experiencing sleep paralysis at 19, I woke unable to move as morning light filtered in. A little girl with black eyes stood by the wall, taking exaggerated steps towards me. She wrapped her hands around my throat and I couldn't breathe. Just as I felt my last gasp, I jerked awake. The girl was gone, but the memory of her choking me, unable to move, still haunts me.